Chapter 72 There is no such thing as a simple and honest Uchiha. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Uchiha Jin, who had already thought about it, did not stay in the backyard for long, and returned to the old house to turn on the stove and cook. After a while, Senju Itama smelled the aroma wafting over from the new house. Have you finished cleaning up? Uchiha Jin, wearing an apron and holding a spatula, asked with a frown. It's necessary. How can such a trivial matter defeat me? The dirty Senju Itama raised a pair of small fists and said proudly, but the large painted face made of dust and sweat made his words unconvincing. You'd better take a shower first and then come back. Uchiha Jin, who was holding his nose, waved his hand in disgust. Snort. Senju Itama, who realized that he really needed to wash up, held his head high and snorted. He stuck his head out with a warning look on his face before walking into the bathroom. Don't peek. Who would peek at a brat like you? Hearing this, Uchiha Jin, who was cooking vegetables, almost threw a jar of salt into the pot and replied with black lines on his head, perhaps because he learned the lesson from last time. Senju Itama washed the dishes very quickly this time. By the time Uchiha Jin brought out the last dish, he was already sitting at the dining table, steaming hot, waiting for the meal to be served. I really can't do anything, but eating comes first. Seeing how fast the kid was, Uchiha Jin taunted. Hey, let's start dinner. The greedy Senju Itama simply ignored the taunts of his rival and stared directly at the sweet and sour fish in Uchiha Jin's hand with a salivating expression. I'm starting. Seeing the sweet and sour fish that he was longing for, Senju Itama moved his index finger and didn't care about anything else, and turned on the wind and waves mode. Sweet and sour fish at noon, sweet and sour fish at night, even this kid is not afraid of getting diabetes. Picking up his own masterpiece with chopsticks and savoring the sweet sauce, Uchiha Jin thought maliciously, without any reflection on how addicted he was to sugar. Uchiha Jin, who ate relatively quickly, was the first to put down his empty rice bowl, looked at the kid who was still fighting, picked his teeth, stood up and said. I have something to do and I have to go to class. Remember to clean up after me. Yeah. Senju Itama, whose mouth was full of food, could not speak and could only make a humming sound to express that he understood. After walking out of the house, Uchiha Jin walked towards the dungeon where he worked, entered the gate and walked to the door of dungeon number 3. The gatekeepers at this time are still the two teenagers I met a few days ago. Brother Erlang, are you on duty again today? Uchiha Jin got acquainted and said hello to the honest boy with a Chinese character on one side of his face. You are my brother's friend. When Uchiha Jiro saw the other party calling out his name, he was stunned for a moment. After thinking quickly in his mind, he remembered that the other party was his brother's friend. That's right, I forgot to introduce myself last time. My name is Uchiha Jin. Uchiha Jin introduced himself to his family with a smile, as amiable as the elder brother who leads the family. Brother Een, are you here to check on the prisoner again? Remembering the identity of the other party's archivist, the young man asked aloud. Yes, there are some doubts in the file, so I came to check it and let me in for the convenience. Uchiha Jin made a random excuse and tricked the boy into letting him in. No problem. The honest Uchiha Jiro immediately opened the cell door and let him in. Then thank you two little brothers. Seeing that his goal was achieved, Uchiha Jin smiled and waved goodbye to the two of them. Erlang, don't you think this guy is suspicious? When Uchiha Jin walked away, Uchiha Fire Core, who had been silent the whole time, frowned and asked. Is there anything suspicious? He is my brother's teammate. I asked my brother a few days ago. It is indeed this person. He is easy to identify with his curly hair. After dealing with Uchiha Jin for the first time, Uchiha Jiro went home that day and asked his brother Dairo about Uchiha Jin. The other party just said with a strange look that he was indeed his teammate, and told him not to worry about it. People. But I seem to have heard someone mention the name Uchiha Jin somewhere, and I have a bad feeling when I mention it. Uchiha Fire Core touched his little head, unable to figure out why he had any resistance. Did you hallucinate while gluing at night? A shy smile appeared on Jiro Uchiha's honest face. It seemed that his honesty was just his protective color. This Uchiha cut open the yellow fluid. What is gluing? The confused Uchiha fire core came into contact with a new term for the first time, and the doubts in his eyes almost overflowed, and he couldn't help but ask. Hey, I'll show you something nice when you get off work. I stole it from my brother. Uchiha Jiro glanced at no one around, and whispered in the ear of Uchiha Fire Core. Uchiha Jin groped around in dungeon number 3 based on his memory, and finally saw the goal of his trip. In the dim corridor, a rickety figure was slowly cleaning up with a broom. Uchiha Jin stepped forward, stared at the familiar figure from behind, and said, I want to see Grandpa. After hearing this, the rickety old jailer raised his pale and withered face and said expressionlessly, Good. The sound was like fingernails scraping against glass, giving him goosebumps. As the word good escaped his lips, the old jailer turned into a puddle of black mud and quickly squirmed towards Uchiha Jin, crawling up his legs and wrapping him up in an instant. Suppressing the discomfort in his body, Uchiha Jin took a deep breath, but did not resist the old jailer's devouring. Then his vision went dark, and his body seemed to be moving at high speed. When he finally saw the light of day again, Uchiha Jin found himself back in the cell where Uchiha was imprisoned. The old man he had seen a few days ago was still writing at his desk. Hearing the noise behind him, he silently raised his head. Seeing that the person coming was actually Uchiha Jin, he asked in surprise. Ah-in, why are you here so quickly? The matter has been settled. Uchiha, who mistakenly thought that Uchiha Jin had controlled Wuming, was very surprised, but Uchiha Jin shook his head and replied. No, Uchiha Taijima didn't move. Then what brings you here? The old man just stopped writing in his hand, stood up, stared at him with his one eye that was still intact, and asked. I wanted to ask about my Sharingan. Uchiha Jin asked bluntly. Among the entire Uchiha clan, apart from Uchiha Miao, whom he had met during the day, only Uchiha Miao in front of him had studied the Sharingan deeply. It would be inappropriate to ask Uchiha Miao directly, as this may arouse Uchiha Taijima's suspicion, but Uchiha Miao has no such concerns. He could sense that the old man had ulterior motives, but adhering to the style of doing things where he could do it for free, Uchiha Jin asked boldly. Has your vision deteriorated? Uchiha Yao asked with a frown. He knew the origin of Uchiha Jin's eyes very well. After transplanting the original kaleidoscope to Wuming, he replaced it with the eyes that Uchiha Yen had taken from the corpse of the Kagaya clan. I still vaguely remember that the owner of those eyes was the follower next to Kagaya Sosuke, but unfortunately he was stabbed to the core by his leader. No, I just want to ask, can my eyes still awaken the kaleidoscope? Uchiha's silver eyes narrowed slightly, and a pair of 3 Magatama Sharingan eyes appeared in front of Uchiha Yao's eyes. The old man could clearly feel the surging power contained in these eyes. As expected of Jin's child, he was able to give birth to eyes that were not his own to such an extent. Chapter 73 Buffs are stacked up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The eyes you have now were taken from the corpse of the intruder by that guy Uchiha Yen. Uchiha Yao told the origin of Uchiha Jin's eyes now. It stands to reason that you can't open the Sharingan. The old man stared at Uchiha Jin's slightly red eyes, and he was a little surprised when he learned that Uchiha Jin opened his eyes. Eye changing is not uncommon in the clan. Due to certain forbidden techniques, ordinary Sharingan can be used as a consumable. Then what's going on with my eyes? Touching his eye sockets, Uchiha Jin recalled the process of opening his Sharingan, and it seemed that it was inseparable from the system. Is it because of system rewards? There are several possibilities. Uchiha Yao thought for a moment, then opened his mouth to explain. First, these eyes may have been swapped. The eyes you replaced are indeed from the tribe. This possibility is not high. Uchiha Miao and Uchiha Yen were well aware of Uchiha Jin's physical condition and rashly replaced him with the Sharingan, which might increase his physical load and cause secondary damage. Second, your body has assimilated these eyes. Assimilation. The first time he came into contact with this kind of knowledge blind spot, Uchiha Jin looked at Uchiha Yao with a question mark on his face, hoping that he would explain to him. There are countless blood vessels and lymphatic vessels in the human eyeball, which maintain the normal operation of the eyeball. After replacing the eyeball, your blood occupies the eyeball, relying on the blood to change the fundamental nature of the eyeball. Uchiha whispered his guess to Uchiha Jin. This is the most likely possibility. After all, even if I study it all my life, I still can't solve all the mysteries of the human body. Uchiha Jin couldn't deny it. Actually, I have another guess. I thought Uchiha Yao's speculation would stop here, but he didn't expect that half a day later he seemed to have remembered something and spoke. What? Uchiha Jin interrupted his thoughts and couldn't help but ask. Over the years, I have devoted myself to the research of blood. Our family has harvested a lot of experimental materials during the war. After studying many experimental materials, I accidentally discovered something interesting. Uchiha Yao's intact eye moved slightly, as if he was remembering something. Uchiha Jin did not interrupt, but listened attentively. I discovered that almost unrelated ninja clans have similar gene chains in their bloodlines. I originally thought it was the result of intercommunication for thousands of years, but some ninja clans have been enemies all year round, and there is no possibility of interoperability and marriage. Senju, Uzumaki, Hagoromo, Hinata, Kagaya. Uchiha Yao talked about the names of several ninja clans. And the Uchiha. These are not all descendants of the Otsutsuki clan. Uchiha Jin, who knew the plot, naturally knew that the above-mentioned ninja clans were all descendants of the Otsutsuki clan that had descended. And these eyes of yours come from the Kagaya clan, and they are a mixture of Kagaya and Hinata. Uchiha Yao had a showdown with Uchiha Jin at this time. His eyes are from a hybrid of the Kagaya clan and the Hyuga clan. Wait a minute, let me figure it out, the relationship is a bit messy. When Uchiha Jin heard what the old man said, he was immediately stunned. The original owner's eyes were actually so complex. He is an Uchiha, his eyes are Kagaya Hinata, and the system has given him the Uzumaki bloodline. Now he only needs Senju and Hagoromo to stack the buffs of the Otsutsuki clan and rush into the universe. Because the same gene set in your bloodline allows your eyes to adapt to your body and automatically transform into Sharingan eyes. If you are a member of the Hyuga clan, there is a high probability that you will awaken the Byakugan if you put on these eyes. Co-authoring or adaptive hot swapping. Since you can open the Sharingan, it means that these eyes are very compatible with you. If you keep them warm and nourished, you will be able to open the kaleidoscope soon. Uchiha Yao looked at Uchiha Jin, who was frowning, and mistakenly thought that the other party was repulsive to foreigners, so he comforted him. It's not difficult to turn on the kaleidoscope. The main problem is that you lack a suitable opportunity. Uchiha Jin has awakened the kaleidoscope before, which shows that he is extremely talented and it will not be difficult to activate it again. All right. Uchiha Jin naturally knew the secret of the so-called opportunity mentioned by the other party, but I don't have anyone I love deeply in this world, and I don't have a deep bond with anyone. How can I open this kaleidoscope? I do have a solution here, but I don't know if it will work. Uchiha Yao noticed Uchiha Jin's anxious mood, thought for a moment and said aloud. Grandpa, help me. There is such a good thing. Uchiha Jin immediately bowed his head and bowed. This grievance for Tsukuyami is nothing. Actually, I don't want you to know about this so early. The old man shook his head and turned around, opened a secret compartment on the wall, reached out and took out a glass jar. This pair is your father's Sharingan. The gloomy-looking Uchiha Yao placed a glass jar with eyeballs in front of Uchiha Jin. A pair of scarlet Sharingan eyes were soaked in the green nutrient solution. Even after losing their master for many years, Uchiha Jin could still feel the majestic eye power from them. These eyes record the entire process of your father's murder by Uchiha Taijima. If you look at it, you will most likely awaken the kaleidoscope. Uchiha Yao stroked the glass jar with deep hatred in his tone. Who is telling the truth? Uchiha Jin felt a little pain in his head when he mentioned this topic again. Except for his grandfather Uchiha Yao, everyone else told about their father's sacrifice to protect his teammates. This time, let him witness this incident with his own eyes. You use the power of the Sharingan to penetrate it, and the picture sealed in it will naturally appear. Following Uchiha Yao's guidance, the Magatama in Uchiha's silver eyes turned slightly, and a cold chakra melted into the Sharingan in the glass jar. A look of unknown meaning flashed through the gray eyes of Gung Liang, who was standing nearby, and he quietly watched the operations of his grandfather and grandson in front of him. With the contact of the eye force, Uchiha Jin felt his body light up and entered a third perspective. A curly-haired man was rushing forward in a hurry, followed by several tribesmen in the same clothes. At this time, several people were injured. Kunai and shurikens flashed by their sides from time to time, reminding them that they were being hunted. "Captain, they are following too closely." That from the appearance of the young man who spoke, Uchiha Jin could vaguely recognize him as his cousin Uchiha Taijima. At this time, he was about 20 years old, but his temperament was as calm as an old man. "Don't panic, I'll hold them back later, and you just retreat." The curly-haired man's voice is as gentle as jade, which makes people fall in love with him as soon as he hears it. His tone of voice is full of confidence, which makes people feel at ease. "Ajin, don't be a hero, I'll go with you." The cold and charming woman next to him stared at him and said through gritted teeth, "I'll stay too." That the young Uchiha Taijima also spoke up. "Stop making trouble. I can go alone. If you stay, you will only be a burden to me." Uchiha Jin shook his head. "You go and join Fenghua first, I will catch up soon." With that said, Uchiha Jin turned to face the enemy. Damn it, that when the cold and beautiful woman saw Uchiha Jin alone, she was furious and turned to the young Taijima and said, "Taijima, you retreat first, I am worried about your brother-in-law." After saying that, he ran after the man's back. Uchiha Taijima stopped, his eyes uncertain, and finally he seemed to have made up his mind and turned around to follow. "Why are you still here? I told you to leave first." Uchiha Jin, who was surrounded, saw the two people coming and shouted anxiously, "How could I leave my family behind?" That the cold-looking woman drew her weapon with a slightly cold look on her face, and the boy Taijima beside her just nodded, and then opened his Sharingan to prepare for battle. After a bloody storm, the three of them fought and retreated. Seeing that the delay was almost over, they were about to speed up their escape when a drastic change happened. "Taijima, what are you doing?" That the tired Uchiha Jin looked at the katana pierced through his stomach in disbelief, and turned his head with difficulty to look at Uchiha Taijima, who looked crazy. "Brother-in-law, I'm sorry. If you don't die, I won't be able to inherit the position of patriarch." As his hands were twisted hard, a huge amount of blood spurted out from Uchiha Jin's wound, and he fell backwards tremblingly. No. The last scene is Uchiha Taijima's cold back, and the cold and charming woman's desperate call. Chapter 74, Breaking Up a Couple. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Pulling out consciousness from the memories recorded by the Sharingan, Uchiha Jin did not awaken the kaleidoscope under the stimulation of losing a loved one as Uchiha Yao thought. Failed. Uchiha Yao's face darkened. He had been stimulated by this scene to turn on the kaleidoscope. He thought that Uchiha Jin could do the same, but unfortunately he didn't succeed. Perhaps my memory of my parents is not very deep. After all, they died when I was very young. Feeling a headache, Uchiha Jin rubbed his temples and found a reasonable excuse for himself. You also saw that it was that guy Uchiha Taijima who murdered your parents. Uchiha Yao stroked the Sharingan that belonged to his deceased son and said in a cold tone. Don't be deceived by his current appearance. Once Wuming is under control, it will be time for us, grandfather and grandson, to take revenge. Yeah. Uchiha Jin, who was still thinking about the scene recorded in the Sharingan eyes, nodded perfunctorily. Then I'll leave first. I'll come back to you when there is news about Wuming. Since he could not advance his Sharingan any further, Uchiha Jin proposed to leave. Then let Wang Liang see you off again. Uchiha Yao had no intention of retaining him, and waved his hand to order the old jailer standing aside to give Uchiha Jin a ride. Once again wrapped in black liquid and dived underground, Uchiha Jin didn't have much stress reaction this time, and even reached out and touched the liquid form. Are you self-aware? Uchiha Jin tried to ask. I am the embodiment of the master's will, and what the master thinks is my consciousness. After a moment of silence, a black face emerged from the black mud and opened its mouth to explain to him with a half-smile. What are your usual hobbies? Uchiha Jin suddenly changed the subject and asked a confusing question. When asked, Liang was stunned for a moment and didn't know how to answer. Since you have self-awareness, you must also have your own interests and hobbies. For example, I like sweets. Is there anything you like to do? Uchiha Jin chatted casually about household matters, not minding that Wang Liang was not a real human being. Well, apart from fulfilling the master's orders, I don't have any other hobbies. If I have to say. For the first time, a thoughtful look appeared on his black face. When I'm free, I look up at the moon. Good guy. A strong sense of déjà vu came to his face, making Uchiha Jin a little unsure. This guy's taste was too strong. After a brief exchange of words, the two said nothing. After a while, Uchiha Jin was sent out of the dungeon by Wang Liang. When he turned around to look again, the black mud had disappeared into the ground. Before he came this time, he was not sure who was telling the truth and who was lying, but now after communicating with Wang Liang, the other party's words were equivalent to revealing his identity. Now Uchiha Jin can be 100% sure that the original owner's grandfather, Uchiha Yao, was deceived by his so-called incarnation of will. It seems that we can no longer come to this place. Confirming in his heart that he was the Zetsuzi in a vest, Uchiha Jin decided not to have contact with this so-called grandpa again, lest he be targeted by the mastermind behind the scenes and get into trouble. After returning to his new home, the big house that Senju Atama had tidied up was quite good. Lying on the newly bought bedding, Uchiha Jin slept soundly. The next day, Uchiha Jin woke up from his sleep, rubbed his curly hair and walked back to his old house to make breakfast. You brat, get up and help. Kicking open the bedroom door, Uchiha Jin shouted loudly as he was still angry after getting up every time he got up early to cook, while Senju Atama, the brat, slept until midnight. Uchiha Jin, who was extremely unbalanced, decided to inform this brat that his good days were over. You Uwawa, I can't eat anymore. Senju Atama, who was sleeping dazedly, was pulled out of the bed by Uchiha Jin. He was wearing only a pair of small underwear and was talking sleepily in his sleep. Eat, 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 are you from the Senju clan or the Akimichi clan? Uchiha Jin, who originally wanted to complain about this brat sleeping naked without any clothes on, became so angry when he heard the brat talking in his sleep that he slapped his round buttocks twice without saying a word. Crack. Uchiha Hentai, put me down quickly. Feeling the perfect Q-bomb touch from his palm, Uchiha Jin looked at Senju Atama who was woken up from his sleep, dropped it and left with satisfaction. Hurry up and help, otherwise you won't have anything to eat today. The aggrieved Senju Atama hugged the quilt with a look of shame and anger on his face, wishing to eat Uchiha Jin alive. You little brat don't know how to be grateful at all. If it weren't for me, you would have been chopped into pieces and sent back to the Thousand Hands clan. Uchiha Jin, who was holding the bowl, rolled his eyes and said to Senju Atama, who was staring at him with extreme hatred. And if you don't eat, the food will get cold. Senju Atama gave him a sharp look, swallowed when he looked at the delicious breakfast on the table, silently thought in his heart that food was the only thing he couldn't live up to, and then quickly turned on the cooking mode. That's right. Only when you have a full stomach can you think about other things. Uchiha Jin clapped his hands with satisfaction, stood up and went out, leaving behind a sentence. Remember to clean up, otherwise you won't have anything to eat when you come back. Senju Atama could only nod like a frustrated little daughter-in-law. The rice was so delicious. After leaving the house, Uchiha Jin did not go to the dungeon to fish as usual, but went straight to Uchiha Taijima's mansion based on his memory, knocking on the door. After a while, Uchiha Izuna stuck his head out from the door. Seeing that the person who came was Uchiha Jin, he opened the door and welcomed him in. Where's Madara? Following Izuna on the long tatami, Uchiha Jin couldn't help but ask when he found that there was no one else in the mansion. Brother, he went out early in the morning. Uchiha Izuna, who was leading the way, said in a sullen voice, with a lot of resentment in his tone. Going on a date again, Uchiha Jin teased with a smile. That's right, Izuna, who was leading the way, heard Uchiha Jin's words and said angrily, making a loud sound on the wooden tatami with his 2 little feet. Father, my cousin is here. Opening a door, sitting and waiting inside was his cousin Uchiha Taijima. Uncle, what's your mission? Looking at the silent Uchiha Taijima, Uchiha Jin asked with some anxiety, is it really a mission to unblock Wuming? Originally I didn't want too many people to know about this, but you have watched Madara and Izuna grow up. As a family, I think you should participate in this task. Uchiha Taijima opened his eyes, a rare tenderness appeared on his cold face, looked at the nephew he had brought up, and said slowly, some time ago, his second son, Izuna, accidentally mentioned to him that his eldest son, Madara, had been behaving strangely recently. He didn't care much about it, so he casually assigned him an investigation task. Unexpectedly, he got unexpected results. Izuna found Madara having a heated fight with a foreign boy near the tribe. She thought it was just a play between children, but she never thought that the foreign boy actually showed good ninja qualities. This made Uchiha Taijima have to doubt the other party's motives. After careful consideration, he decided to take Izuna and Jin's 2 children to meet the foreign boy for a while to test the other party's origins. Madara has been acting strangely recently. After Izuna's investigation, I found that he has close contacts with a boy from a foreign race. I'm afraid that he is a spy from other ninja clans. Uchiha Taijima opened his mouth to explain the content of the mission to Uchiha Jin. So our trip this time is to capture the foreign boy and see if he has any other purposes. You shouldn't need to do this kind of task yourself, uncle, right? Uchiha Jin couldn't figure it out. To catch a child, the leader of the clan had to do it himself. Madara is my child. He may serve as the leader of the clan in the future. We cannot let his resume be stained in any way. Uchiha Taijima thought very far, and only his own family could participate in this task. After hearing the contents of the mission, Uchiha Jin couldn't help but take a breath. I also participated in the co-authoring of Fighting the Mandarin Ducks. Chapter 75, Cousin, don't misunderstand me. I really want to save only you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The father and son, who had put on their equipment, led the confused Uchiha Jin and flew into the forest outside the clan's territory. For the first time, Uchiha Jin saw Uchiha Izuna wearing battlefield equipment, a simple chest armor, and a katana that was about the same height as others. Brother usually hangs out with that watermelon head in Nanga River. Quan Nai led the way and said in a resentful tone. Actually, I suspect that child is from the Thousand Hands clan. Uchiha Taijima, who was beside Uchiha Jin, whispered to him, with a murderous aura in his eyes. Yesterday, Madara was aware of Kwana and Ai's intentions, so he went out early in the morning. I hope this kid won't be deceived by people from other races. No wonder Uchiha Madara disappeared so early. It turned out that he was giving a tip to his Heisei hot mom. If he is really a descendant of the Thousand Hands clan, the other party will definitely have an ambush. When the time comes, you should be careful. Uchiha Taijima relied on the thinking of a strategist to speculate that the Senju clan might be nearby, and warned the weak Uchiha Jin in advance. No problem. Uchiha Jin nodded immediately. Look. Brother is there. Several people hid in the forest and quietly moved behind a big tree near the river. From a distance, they could see Uchiha Madara and a boy looking at each other across the river. By the river, the boy banned through the stone he had been holding for a long time to the other side of the river. The boy with the melon-shaped head on the other side of the river also threw a similar stone in his hand. The 2 stones paddled across the water and fell steadily into each other's hands, the boy who had a slight smile on his face, but when he saw a few words on the stone in his hand, his face darkened. The boy with the melon-skinned head on the other side of the river also had the same expression. Hashi hot mom, I'm sorry, we can't play together today. After seeing clearly the big characters on the stone, the boy Ban immediately said that he was here for the day, turned around and waved, saying, I suddenly remembered that I still have something to do. Well, then I'll go back today. The melon-headed boy, who also saw clearly the words on the stone in his hand, looked troubled, but he still raised his hand to say goodbye. The two teenagers turned their heads, put strength on their feet, and ran in the opposite direction at the same time. So fast. Are you trying to escape? This guy Hashirama actually leaked the secret. The person hiding behind the melon-headed boy felt a little anxious when he saw his target turning around and walking away. He turned to a short white figure beside him and said, "Let's go, Tobarama." "Yes." The white-haired kid on the side nodded and followed. "No, the other party wants to escape." Uchiha Taijima saw that the melon-headed boy on the other side of the river evacuated as soon as he met him. He immediately guessed that the other party knew there was an ambush, and waved his hand and ordered, "Jin, Izuna, chase after me." After that, he took the lead and flew after him. Yes. Yes. Full of energy, Izuna and Uchiha Jin flew to follow. The people who rushed out from both sides saw the other side's menacing approach, and at the same time they stepped on their feet. Relying on the ninja's ability to tread water, they just stopped on the river. Both sides on guard were watching eagerly. Plop. The originally tense atmosphere was broken by the sound of falling water. Sorry, I haven't used it for a long time and I'm not very good at it." Uchiha Jin, who barely managed to stabilize his wet feet on the water, said to the people present with an apologetic look. The silence was deafening. "It seems we have the same idea." With a slight twitch in the corner of his eye when he opened the scarlet Sharingan, Uchiha Taijima took a deep breath, held the handle of the knife at his waist with his backhand, looked at the old acquaintance opposite, and said with a cold face, "In the room of thousand-armed Buddha." And Tobarama, Uchiha Izuna, who looked disgusted on the side, tried to save the face of the Uchiha clan, and challenged the white-haired kid opposite him in an old-fashioned way. "Yes, Uchiha Taijima." The middle-aged man wearing the same armor as the first generation and with a mature expression is the current leader of the Senju clan, Senju Budama. Holding a kunai in his hand, he also replied with a cold expression. "And Izuna." The white-haired Tobarama, who couldn't stand the provocation of the evil Uchiha brat, responded with a fighting spirit while carrying a giant katana bigger than others behind him. "Hey, little cousin, how do you and the bad-looking Bai Mao opposite you know each other?" Uchiha Jin, who turned into a background board, couldn't help but quietly ask Izuna, who was full of fighting spirit. "I followed my father and fought against the Senju clan many times." That conspicuous white-haired man was often active on the battlefield. "We fought against each other frequently. He is the child of Senju Budama, and his name is Senju Tobarama." Even though the atmosphere was so tense, in the face of my dear cousin's question, Uchiha Izuna still took the time to explain. "It's time." As a leaf fell from the sky, the two sides took action at the same time with a tacit understanding, big versus big, small versus small. Uchiha Taijima went to the thousand-armed Buddha room to start a battle between the two clan leaders. Izuna faced Tobarama, and the long weapons of both sides collided, causing a splash of water. "What about me?" Uchiha Jin watched in confusion as each of them found their opponent, leaving him alone to watch the show. Looking around the entire battlefield, he felt that fishing was not a good idea. He locked his gaze on the watermelon-skinned boy who was still in a daze. An inexplicable light emitted from his eyes, and he became eager to try. That was the future god of the ninja world, and Uchiha Jin really didn't want to miss the opportunity to give the first Hokage a shock. Seizing the opportunity, he rushed towards the dazed Senju Hashirama, shouting at the same time. "Senju kid, dare you fight with me?" Uchiha Jin. "Ah." Senju Hashirama, who was still thinking quickly about how to avoid the escalation of the conflict with his Madara, looked up in surprise and saw a curly-haired Uchiha running over from the other side of the river with a wretched look on his face. He subconsciously raised his classic starting position and prepared to fight with the other party. The host is detected to be in a battle, and the heart steel treasure chest begins to accumulate. The system prompt sounded at the same time. "Take my punch." Uchiha Jin, who had accumulated strength in the air, was ready to give this future ninja god a little strange power shock. With this punch, even the ninja god would have to lie down for a few days. Just when Uchiha Jin's fist was about to hit Senju Hashirama, a figure quickly came and kicked Senju Hashirama, who was in a defensive posture, away. "Cousin, you don't have to do anything. I'll be his opponent." The one who came was the young boy Madara, who had been watching his father and brother fight indifferently. "Okay, then leave it to my cousin." Uchiha Jin, who had released his strength in the air, saw that he was intercepted by his elder cousin. Knowing that he couldn't participate, he shrugged and gave up his position. Now, each of them fights their own, and he is left alone again. Uchiha Jin, who has become a background board again, has to step aside and watch everyone's wonderful performance. "Izuna, don't compete with the Senju clan in strength. You can kill him by spitting saliva on his face." The person in charge is confused, but the bystander is clear. Uchiha Jin, who is standing aside, gave advice to Uchiha Izuna, who is still in confrontation. Despicable Uchiha, hearing such a vicious plan, the white-haired, red-eyed kid was angry at the time. There are actually Uchiha people who can play tricks like him. This kid must not be kept. Izuna, who was at a disadvantage in the wrestling match, naturally had no energy to speak, but she was thinking quickly about the moves her cousin had said. Just as the two teenagers were evenly matched, the two clan leaders jumped up at the same time and threw their weapons at the two little ghosts who were still confronting each other, intending to kill them. Not good. The young boys Madara and Hashirama, who were still playing a fake match, saw that their father actually attacked their two younger brothers, and tacitly stopped the sparring in their hands and prepared to go to rescue their brothers, but it was a bit out of reach. "Izuna! Tobarama!" The two helpless people shouted at the same time, trying to let the two younger brothers relieve the force and dodge, but the two little ghosts had a strange desire to win at this time, and they were waiting for the other side to retreat first, but both sides were stubborn and there was a stalemate for a while. Ding! Ding! Plop! Just when the kunai and the short blade were about to fall on the heads of the two brothers, a flying samurai sword blocked the path of the two hidden weapons. With a burst of golden sounds, the three weapons fell into the water. Everyone present was looking for the owner of the samurai sword, and finally everyone's eyes were locked on Uchiha Jin standing on the shore. "If I say I slipped, will you believe me?" Chapter 76, The Thousand Hands Clan is best at sneak attacks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Who? The two teenagers who were fighting each other let out a sigh of relief at the same time. Seeing that the situation had reached a stalemate, the two retreated in unison, flying in front of his own camp. The young boy with a slightly cold face stared at the people opposite and shouted a warning. "I will never forgive anyone who tries to harm my brother." "Me too." The Guapito Heisei hot mom standing at the front also had a serious look on her face as she followed her husband. After saying that, a trace of determination flashed in the eyes of the young boy with a complex expression, "Madara," and he slowly spoke to the person in front of him. "Hashi hot mommy." "How?" Hearing Madara's slightly cold tone, Hashirama's heart tightened. "Those silly bright futures we talked about, in the end." Why did this sentence sound weird? Uchiha Jin, who was eating melon, almost took out the melon seed stool to watch the ignorant love and hatred between teenagers. Maybe we really can't reach it. After the boy Madara said this, he seemed to have exhausted all his strength. After lowering his head, his eyes changed from tangled to indifferent. "Madara, you." Feeling the unfamiliar indifference, Guapi Hashirama looked at his former best friend with a shocked expression, but couldn't continue after he opened his mouth. The boy Madara, who had already decided in his heart to cut off this bond, raised his head with empty eyes and said with a cold face. "Although the time is short, I am really happy, Heisei hot mom." Aren't the Senju clan famous for their good physical strength and endurance? Just as the two teenagers bid farewell affectionately, the adults on both sides had their own thoughts. Thousand-armed Buddha room, there are 4 people on the opposite side. 3 versus 4 is at a disadvantage for us. Uchiha Taijima, who was standing behind several people, asked aloud. "How about it, can you do it, Madara?" He came to contain Senju Budama, while Izuna held back the white-haired brat. As long as Madara could defeat the watermelon-headed Senju brat and distract Senju Budama, his side could securely win. "No, Heisei hot mom is better than me." Hearing the implication of his father's words, Uchiha Madara, who had not really let go yet, spoke out. If we meet head-on, we will lose. No, did you miss me? This is 3 against 4, do I have the advantage? Uchiha Jin heard the retreat in the young Madara's words. This boy might not be able to defeat Hashirama, but considering his words, it shouldn't be a big problem. With Uchiha Jin's current strength, it was still easy to crush the 4 brats present without exposing Amaterasu. A kid who's more powerful than his brother, standing behind the boy Madara, his brother Azuna couldn't help but asked in surprise. In his mind, his brother should be the strongest person among his peers. Really? He has such strength. Uchiha Taijima, who also sensed that his eldest son had no fighting spirit, said helplessly. No, cousin, maybe we can keep this old guy here on our shoulders. Uchiha Jin came close to Uchiha Taijima and encouraged him in a low voice. After being silent for so long, he couldn't bear it anymore and came out to angrily wipe out his presence. As a result, Uchiha Taijima gave him a big look. You don't understand the strength of the leader of the clan. Between 1,000-armed Buddha and me, we are brothers. It's easy to take your life. Uchiha Taijima didn't deliberately ignore Uchiha Jin's combat power. He knew Uchiha Jin's physical condition best, and it was because he understood it so well that he didn't let him act rashly. My eyes are opened. Feeling underestimated, Uchiha Jin couldn't help but whisper. It's just because you opened your eyes that I didn't let you go. Your body can't bear it. Uchiha Taijima briefly explained, what do you mean you can't bear it? He's as strong as a cow now, okay? Uchiha Jin curled his lips helplessly. The original owner's physical fitness is indeed too poor, and his current performance is so eye-catching that it arouses suspicion. Forget it, let's go to the head office. Withdraw. Uchiha Taijima didn't know if the other side had reinforcements. Knowing that his side had no reinforcements, it was better to retreat first. Gonada the young Madara glanced at Hashirama and turned around to leave. Madara. Actually, you haven't given up yet, have you? Seeing that the one he loves is about to leave him, Guapazujian takes a step to emotionally retain this relationship. It's not easy for you to have the same idea as me. You are from Senju. With his back to Guapazuma, the young man Madara spoke eloquently. If possible, I really hope our thoughts are different. Our 2 clans have been enemies for generations. My relatives died at the hands of the Senju clan, and your brothers and sisters also died at the hands of Uchiha. So, there is no need for you and me to be honest with each other. From now on, let's meet on the battlefield. Senju Hashi Hot Mom. The young boy with a cold tone said these words word by word, and the power of words was like a sharp blade, cutting through the deep relationship established between the 2. I am Uchiha Madara. For the first time, a surname was added between the 2 of them, like a bottomless ravine opening up between them, forever separating the 2 who were once childhood sweethearts. After saying these words, the boy Madara felt a pain in his heart. Under the stimulation of his brain, a cold energy came from his eyes. When he raised his head again, the boy's dark eyes turned scarlet. Look at brother's eyes. Azuna, who was the first to discover it, excitedly pointed at Madara's eyes and turned to shout to Uchiha Taijima behind him. Humph, even though we couldn't get the information about Senju, we got another good thing here. Looking at the boy Madara who was slowly walking towards him, Uchiha Taijima nodded with satisfaction. Although they had gained nothing by retreating without a fight, it was a great joy for his eldest son to successfully open his eyes. Sharingan. Did you just open it? The 1,000-armed Buddha, who was still waiting for the opportunity to move, saw the boy Madara opening his eyes, and something bad arose in his heart. Such genius must be nipped in the cradle. Senjubujian's eyes turned slightly. Although their side did not have the numerical advantage, if he took advantage of the opponent's withdrawal and struck with thunder, he would have a high chance of capturing the Uchiha brat. Calmly, he glanced at the white-haired kid next to him. The scheming father and son hit it off immediately, and reached out their hands to quietly touch the weapons behind them. Let's go, it's not suitable to stay here for a long time. A slightly smiling Uchiha Taijima patted the dazed Uchiha Jin next to him and urged, "Something doesn't feel right. Why is my heart strength treasure box still activated for combat? Didn't they all stop it?" In his mind, Uchiha Jin looked at the heart of the heart treasure chest that was still playing BGM, and couldn't help but feel a little doubt in his heart. Okay. Uchiha Jin, who came back to his senses, scratched his head and quickly followed his cousin's pace. Suddenly, a sense of crisis arose spontaneously. With his back to the Thousand Hands and the others, he could clearly see the Thousand Hands Buddha Jian who was pretending to evacuate, and the white-haired kid once again drew his weapon and walked extremely fast. He rushed towards the two brothers at the end of the team. Not good. Before he had time to think about why he could suddenly see the scene behind him, Uchiha Jin kicked his feet hard with the blessing of strange power, and rushed towards the two cousins behind him like a cannonball. Hurry up! Uchiha Madara, who had just opened his eyes, was a little weak, and Izuna was supporting him. Following Uchiha Taijima and Uchiha Jin, they were not aware of the murderous intention behind them. The two brothers suddenly heard the serious shouting of their eldest cousin, and subconsciously leaned down and lowered their heads. Whoosh whoosh! Several sharp kunai grazed their scalps, and the two brats suddenly broke into a cold sweat. Chapter 77 I was careless and didn't dodge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Despicable Senju brats, you forest Senju should just change your name to Stealing Senju. Uchiha Jin said with a mocking look on his face as he dodged the incoming kunai. Seeing that the attack missed, Senjubutama frowned and began to look directly at the curly-haired Uchiha in front of him. He had clearly made a mistake in treading water just now, but he was able to detect his planned sneak attack. A soldier never tires of deceit. Holding a machete larger than his own body, the white-haired kid screamed and looked at the Uchiha people present with disgust. It is torture for me to breathe the same air as you evil Uchihas. She is indeed a Konoha diva. She has been very articulate since she was a child. Senjubutama failed to hit a single blow. Thinking quickly in his mind, he had to get it before Uchiha Taijima could react. With a clap of his hands, chakra exploded all over his body, and his fist filled with strange power fell quickly towards the weak young Madara. This old man didn't give up and wanted to send his little brother away under his nose. Naturally, Uchiha Jin couldn't let him succeed, and his eyes instantly flashed red. Thousand-armed Buddha's movements slowed down frame by frame in the eyes of the three Magatama, and the opponent's attack trajectory was also exposed under these eyes. You want to touch my little brother, have you asked me? He ducked in front of the two brats and crossed his hands to try to block the opponent's attack. It wasn't until Senjubutama's fist actually hit him that Uchiha Jin understood what his cousin just said. The gap between the two is really too big. Uchiha Jin originally thought that with the rewards from the system, his strength would be able to stand firm in the Warring States period, and he felt a little elated. Now, a simple punch from Thousand-armed Buddha made him realize this reality. Crack! The brutal force came, and Uchiha Jin watched in disbelief as the forearms of both hands were broken off. His chest was dented by the remaining force of the fist. The alarm bells in his head rang loudly, and the breath of death rushed towards his face. Uchiha Jin, with a large amount of blood on his body, flew backwards, leaving a bright blood line in the air. The host fails and gains anima *14. After another battle, the Heart Steel Treasure Box reward can be unlocked. Current total anima, 36. Flying in mid-air, he received the system's prompt tone. Ah-in. Cousin. X2, seeing Jin Uchiha being knocked out by his own punch, Senjubutsujian was a little stunned. How could this stupid Uchiha dare to receive a punch from him head-on, considering his unparalleled iron fist appearance? The name is not in vain. The despicable Senju clan. Picking up the seriously injured Uchiha Jin, Uchiha Taijima's eyes were on fire, and a pair of scarlet Sharingan stared at the instigator. As his emotions rose, the three Magatama in his eyes rotated rapidly, as if they were about to be connected. Cousin! Don't die! Izuna burst into tears, lying next to Uchiha Jin and crying helplessly. A red light flashed in her tear-soaked eyes. Madara on the side clenched his hands, with a look of hatred that wished he could kill the Senju clan in front of him. Eaten alive. Cough cough cough. Uchiha Jin's injury seemed to be quite serious, but with the blessing of the Uzumaki clan's physique, the bleeding had stopped, and he only needed to reconnect the broken bones to heal. It's not in vain that I usually take care of you too. He spit out the blood clot stuck in his mouth, and after recovering a little, he said happily to the two little cousins who showed their true feelings. Don't move for now, wait until I send you back for treatment. Uchiha Taijima was shocked when he discovered that Uchiha Jin could still speak. He was afraid that this was a comeback. He didn't want to fight anymore. The top priority was to treat his seriously injured nephew. In the thousand-armed Buddha room, next time we meet, either you will die or I will live. Uchiha Taijima, who carefully picked up Uchiha Jin, raised his head and said to the Senjubatsuma who was about to move in the distance. Those eyes, I originally wanted to take advantage of his illness to kill Senjubatsu, but I suddenly noticed the strange pattern in the eyes of Uchiha Taijima not far away, and stopped the idea of taking action. Tobirama, Hashirama, retreat. If he were to confront Uchiha Taijima alone, he would not be timid, but with his two remaining sons present, once the war started, the mountains and the ground would collapse, and not a single blade of grass would grow for miles around. Even if the winner could be decided in the end, his own children cannot escape death. After hearing his father's order, the white-haired Tobirama looked at the people in front of him unwillingly, but he could sense the thick and cold chakra rising from the Uchiha clan leader opposite him. He knew that the outcome would be uncertain if the fight continued, so he immediately turned his head. He returned home and left with his father. Madara, I'm sorry. Guapi Hashirama looked at his former best friend across from him with an apologetic expression. He could only apologize to him silently in his heart, looked at him with nostalgia and then left. After the Senju people left, Uchiha Taijima closed his Sharingan and staggered on his feet. The cost of forcibly opening it was a feeling of emptiness in his body. In order to intimidate the thousand-armed Buddha, he had to forcefully activate the kaleidoscope. Fortunately, the other party used a rat weapon, otherwise Uchiha Jin and the two children would hardly be spared if there was a real fight. Go back to your clan quickly. The three of them seemed to be running toward their clan's homeland as if there was wind at their feet. Soon, Uchiha Jin, who returned to the clan, was immediately sent to the medical point. Uchiha Taijima stared directly at the doctor and said coldly. He must be rescued, otherwise you go down and stay with him. The doctor, who was frightened and sweating, hurriedly pushed Uchiha Jin into the operating room and found that the victim's arms and chest bones were all broken as if he had been hit head-on by a carriage, but fortunately his internal organs were not pierced by the bones, so he started the operation immediately. A few hours later. How come this guy's vital signs are so stable? He doesn't look seriously injured at all. In the operating room, the doctor who had finished the operation looked at Uchiha Jin, whose breath was stable, and said strangely. The patient is out of danger. He only needs to rest and he will recover. Pushing open the door of the operating room, the doctor took off his mask and said to the anxious people waiting outside the door. Great, but when Izuna heard that Uchiha Jin was fine, he jumped 3 feet high in an instant. Humph, I said this guy wouldn't die so easily. Uchiha Madara, with joy in his eyes, turned his head and said proudly. Is it really okay? Will it cause the old injury to relapse? Uchiha Taijima's eyes lit up when he heard it, and then he thought of something and asked hurriedly. I didn't find any traces of old injuries, the doctor who performed the surgery recalled carefully. He did not find any old injuries on Uchiha Jin. Instead, he was unusually strong. After listening to the doctor's words, Uchiha Taijima fell into thought. It seemed that Uchiha Miao still needed to check how Jin's body recovered. Ban and Izuna, you will be responsible for taking care of Jin in the next few days. Since Uchiha Jin was fine, Uchiha Taijima, who was busy with work, should not stay for long. He handed the care work to his two sons and turned around and left in a hurry. Leave it to me. I will definitely take care of my cousin and make him fat and white. There will be another chapter later. Chapter 78 Sacrifice. Show me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yes, right there, give me a little harder. I don't believe you can make me admit defeat. Uchiha Jin, who looked comfortable, was lying on the bed, enjoying Uchiha Izuna's massage service. He turned his head and said to Uchiha Madara next to him. Cousin, peel an apple for me and cut it into a rabbit shape. Plate hashtag, the boy Madara, who had just thrown away the leftover banana peel of Jin Uchiha, had several symbols made of veins appear on his head. Seeing the opponent's hands covered with bandages, Madara Uchiha swallowed hard and picked up the hand beside him. The fruit knife pierced the apple on the side hard. Jiaoyo, I won't eat it if I'm emotional. It will hinder my wound recovery. Uchiha Jin had a mean face, which made the boy Madara's teeth itch for a while, and then he imagined the apple in his hand to be someone and slapped him hard. Yeah, my sword skills are good, no wonder I can dance. Uchiha Jin nodded in recognition and said with appreciation in his tone. Cousin, how strong is it? Uchiha Izuna, who had been fighting on the bed for a long time, raised his head and asked Uchiha Jin with a flushed face. That's right, that's right. My little cousin's physical skills will definitely stand out among the rest in the future. I'm ashamed of myself, cousin. The numbness on the legs was very good, and Uchiha Jin, who had enjoyed the distinguished service, praised with satisfaction. The host failed, gained anima *16, and the Heart Steel treasure chest reward has been unlocked. Current accumulated anima, 52. The beautiful voice of the system sounded in Uchiha Jin's mind. Looking at the layers with pleasure, Uchiha Jin smiled from ear to ear. A few days ago, he was punched to the ground by thousand-armed Buddha. After escaping from death, he was taken care of by his two cousins. He woke up the next day after the operation. The first thing he did when he woke up was to arrange for Izuna, who had a relationship with Senju Atama, to go to his house to tell him that he was injured and hospitalized, so that he wouldn't run around. Huh? The curly-haired gorilla is injured. Looking at Uchiha Izuna, whom he had met once before, Senju Atama asked in surprise. Is it serious? But it was serious. His whole body was blown far away, his hands were broken, and there was such a big hole in his chest. Uchiha Izuna told Senju Atama about Uchiha Jin's injury without any added jealousy. Doesn't that mean you're going to die? When he heard that Uchiha Jin was so seriously injured, for some reason, Senju Atama felt his heart tighten, and then he couldn't help crying. Hey, don't cry. My cousin has woken up. The doctor said he will recover in a while. Now he is in the hospital. Let me give this to you. When Uchiha Izuna saw the kid in front of him suddenly cry, he hurriedly explained, and as he spoke, he took out a scroll and handed it to Senju Atama. Fine. The teary-eyed Senju kid tilted his head and asked. It's okay. Take it quickly, I have to buy some fruit for my cousin. Without waiting for a reaction, he thrust the scroll into Senju Atama's hand, and Uchiha Izuna ran away quickly. Returning to the old house, Senju Atama calmed down and hesitantly opened the scroll in his hand, and what he saw was a passage. Children Shinju, I was heroically wounded and need to recuperate in the hospital for a few days. During this time, you should take care of yourself. Be careful when you go shopping. If you encounter someone who is in trouble, just report my name and I guarantee that I won't beat you to death. Note, take this little money and spend it first, don't starve yourself to death. There was a storage seal at the end of the scroll. Senju Banma clicked on it curiously, and with a bang, the scroll turned into a burst of white smoke. As the smoke dissipated, Senju Atama was blinded by a dazzling golden light. Those few gold bricks should be enough, right? Lying on the bed, Uchiha Jin looked at the unfamiliar ceiling, thinking about whether he should give him a few more dollars. Cousin, who owns that magnificent big house next to your house? Izuna, who was serving Uchiha Jin, suddenly raised his head and asked. When I went to Uchiha Jin's house a few days ago, I saw the luxurious house next door that I had never seen before. Izuna was very jealous and couldn't help but want to find out. I built it new. How do you think it is? Isn't it nice? Uchiha Jin crossed one leg and said suggestively. Little cousin, please be nice to me, and I will arrange one for you in the future. Come on, cousin, do you think there's anything wrong with this intensity? Izuna, who understood instantly, immediately used the special skills that she had only developed in the past few days, and pressed Jin Uchiha to the point of ecstasy. Okay, Quan Nai, you can open a massage parlor for the blind in the future. The business will definitely be booming. When I was lying in the hospital bed with nothing to do, I tried to challenge Izuna to play a duel game. I never thought that I could trigger the heart steel. The overjoyed Uchiha Jin not only ate the last wave, but also ate another round in succession. Now Uchiha Jin daily life in the hospital is very regular, provocation, duel, ashamed that a set of processes is like a fish in water. Cousin, the time agreed with father is up, I'm leaving first. Uchiha Madara, who had finished peeling the apples, handed a plate of apples to Uchiha Jin. Looking at the vivid rabbit carved on the plate, Uchiha Jin turned away and asked curiously. Cousin, you are quite professional in this craft. Have you practiced secretly? I, Uchiha Madara, don't want to be an artist. That the boy Madara raised his head and said with a serious face. Okay. If you have ideals, I support you. Uchiha Jin used his only movable thumb to help his eldest cousin's dream. Anyone who has a dream is great. Go quickly, or your cousin will be waiting anxiously. But now is not the time to talk about ideals. The future of the Uchiha clan still depends on the eldest cousin, and he can't let him go down this wrong path. The future is hard to say. If Konoha is founded and the eldest cousin wants to pursue his dream, he, as a brother, will definitely support him with all his strength. Waving goodbye to the two, the young boy Madara hurried away. Alas, since my brother opened his eyes, my father has become more strict. He will train my brother until late every day. Izuna, who was rubbing his legs silently, suddenly sighed and said to Uchiha Jin. After your brother broke up with that fool head, his thoughts became clear. He took the initiative to ask for training. They are all children of the clan leader. He doesn't want to lose to that fool head of the Senju family. He probably guessed Uchiha Madara's thoughts and explained to his younger cousin, and then quietly enjoyed Izuna's massage. In the system space, Uchiha Jin was rubbing his hands and looking at the heart steel treasure box in front of him. Next to the treasure box were 3 heart steel magic balls from the previous round. As the settlement was clicked, the beating heart steel treasure box sang the BGM and spit out the magic balls, 3 more. Uchiha Jin looked at the 6 heart steel magic balls on the chessboard excitedly and stretched out his god's right hand. Give it to me, gold bricks *10. It's just a cushion. When you feel like it, give it to me, gold bricks *10. A plant. Uchiha Jin, who had opened 2 gold bricks in a row, hesitated with his right hand stretched out. Is my god's right hand useless? No, when has it ever worked? In desperation, Uchiha Jin had to use the sacrifice method, recalling the voice and smile of his little cousin, and said, I'm sorry, Izuna, but I will treat you well in the future. Use Izuna's cousin's 10 years of life to give it to me. Chapter 79 Other People's Children. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As if responding to Uchiha Jin's call, this heart of strength ball burst out with a bright light that was different from the past. With a flash of golden light, a strange gray-brown armor appeared on the chessboard. The body of the armor was covered with sharp thorns, making it look particularly ferocious. No, this thing can also be produced. Looking at the extremely familiar equipment in front of him, the corners of Uchiha Jin's eyes twitched crazily. Spine vest, gain 5% of maximum health and reduce damage from attacks by 8%. When hit by an attack, inflicts 100 damage to all nearby enemies. With a thought, the attributes of the armor appeared in Uchiha Jin's mind. Isn't this just like shoveling a hair? It's okay, as long as it's not a brick, I'll accept it. Forcibly looking away from the armor, Uchiha Jin turned to the remaining 3 orbs. He was already out of the minimum living security and was fearless, so he opened them with a wave of his hand. Gold brick *10, gold brick *10, gold brick *10, with the familiar rhythm, the mats were put up again. Uchiha Jin nodded with satisfaction, and he would definitely produce good products next time. then staring at the only trophy, Uchiha Jin decided to go out and try it in a deserted place. In reality, I don't want to lose to that white-haired brat either. Quan Nai, who was holding her leg, suddenly raised her head and said seriously. I will definitely take care of him next time we meet. You have ambition, but you don't have the eggs. If nothing happens, you will be taken away by that white-haired kid with a single blow to your kidneys. I believe you, you are just a despicable thousand-handed brat. My little cousin will kill him. Encouragement is the best protection for children's growth. Feeling Uchiha Jin's support, Izuna pressed harder. Staring at the thin body of his little cousin, Uchiha Jin's heart moved and he said. Quena, when you become an adult, my cousin will give you a gift to keep your kidney safe. The little cousin has a question mark face. Just as the two brothers were making jokes, the door to the ward was pushed open, and the person who came surprised Uchiha Jin. Elder Miao, why are you here? Uchiha Miao, who was carrying a basket of fruits, still had the same indifferent expression. His eyes looked around the ward, and finally stopped at Izuna beside the bed, and handed the fruit basket in his hand to his little cousin. Young patriarch, please go wash a plate of fruit. It seemed like a plain sentence, but the tone contained a meaning that could not be rejected. Frowning, Izuna turned to look at Uchiha Jin, who nodded before taking the fruit. Quena, wash a little longer and wash carefully. Seeing that Uchiha Miao wanted to talk to him alone, he took the initiative to ask his little cousin to avoid him. After Izuna left, Uchiha Miao slowly spoke. The test report of your eyes is out. Ah! What happened to my eyes? He didn't expect that the other party actually came to tell him about this, but it was a bit late. He had already understood the origin of his eyes from Uchiha Yao, but he couldn't act too calmly. In the cells of your eyeballs, I detected several different kinds of forces. Uchiha Miao looked at Uchiha's silver-dark pupils and said slowly. Your eyeballs were taken from the Kagaya clan. Logically speaking, they are just ordinary substitutes for you and can only restore your sight. It's actually the Kagaya clan. Uchiha Jin was shocked and showed a trace of resistance on his face at the right time. Not only that, I also detected the genes of the Hyuga clan on my eyeballs. Uchiha Jin was even more shocked now. He picked up the mirror on the table and began to check his own eyes. After looking at it for a long time, he deliberately asked. But my eyes aren't white either. It's just a thin bloodline, not enough to awaken the Byakugan. However, the composition of your eyes is a bit complicated now. These eyes can actually activate the Sharingan. I am also very curious. Uchiha Miao was a little surprised. This was the first time he encountered such a situation. I infer that the huge amount of Yin escape chakra you once contained transformed these eyes and caused them to mutate. As for Uchiha Jin relying on these eyes to awaken the Sharingan, Uchiha Miao put forward a completely different view than Uchiha Yao. Uchiha Yao believed that Uchiha Jin relied on his own blood to assimilate these complex eyes, while Uchiha Miao deduced that he used his own Yin escape chakra to transform these eyes, a huge amount of Yin escape chakra. Uchiha Jin understood clearly in his heart that the original owner had awakened the Mangekyo, and it was understandable that he had a huge amount of Yin escape chakra. Won't that cause rejection? Uchiha Jin asked curiously. Your data is very stable as if these eyes were born to belong to you. Uchiha Miao sighed and said that the pair of eyes matched Uchiha Jin very well during the test, and they did not look like transplants at all. Then can I open a kaleidoscope? Uchiha Jin squinted his eyes and asked seriously, looking straight at the somewhat embarrassed Uchiha Miao. You need to ask the clan leader about this. I'll leave first if I have something to do. Hearing Uchiha Jin's sudden question, Uchiha Miao just looked at him deeply, threw the question to Uchiha Taijima, then stood up and left. Oh, why is Elder Miao gone? The orange he gave is so sour. Holding the washed fruit, Uchiha Izuna returned to the ward and found that Uchiha Jin was alone. Elder Miao has to leave first, please give me a taste of how sour it is. Uchiha Jin, who returned to his normal lazy state, opened his mouth wide, waiting for Uchiha Izuna to feed him. Oh, this is a lemon, you idiot. A week later, Uchiha Jin was discharged from the hospital smoothly, bid farewell to his two cousins with tears, and embarked on his way home. Recalling the appearance of Senju Atama in my mind, I pushed open the old house but found that it was empty. The whole room was covered with dust, as if no one was inhabited. Not good. The kid was caught. The first reaction in Uchiha Jin's mind was that Senju Atama had been kidnapped, and his heart suddenly skipped a beat. He and that brat had a soul chain tied to him. If the brat got killed, he would be dead too. Hello, your takeout. Just when Uchiha Jin jumped to his feet and was about to go out to look for traces of the kid, a voice came from outside the door. When he walked out, he found a sweet-looking purple-haired Uchiha girl carrying a wooden backpack and loudly asking if anyone was in the room. "Hello, the grilled fish you ordered has arrived, please sign for it." That when the Uchiha girl saw someone coming out, she quickly ran over and put down her backpack, took out a piece of hot grilled fish and said to Uchiha Jin, "I have another order, please check and sign for it." Looking at the grilled fish in front of him, Uchiha Jin raised an angry symbol on his eyebrows. After taking a deep breath, he asked calmly, "Who ordered it?" "Let me see, it was ordered by a gentleman named Uchiha Jin." The bright girl took out an order from her arms, took a look at it and said to Uchiha Jin, "Is there such a business now?" Uchiha Jin, who suppressed the anger in his heart and was very curious about the girl's work, asked. "This is a long-term mission. You can make money quickly and practice your body skills." The fledgling Uchiha girl said with a bright smile. "It's really good. You can make money to support your family at a young age, unlike some loser." Gritting his teeth, Uchiha Jin took the grilled fish from the girl's hand and signed the order. Suddenly he saw a row of crooked characters Uchiha Jin in front of his name, and his signing hand almost crushed. "Pen." After calming down, Uchiha Jin smiled and said to the diligent girl, "Give you a 5-star review." Chapter 80. How can the work of a cultured person be called stealing? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dong dong dong. Knocking hard on the door of his big house, Uchiha Jin told himself to stay calm. "Here I come." As the familiar voice sounded, the door was suddenly opened, and Senju Atama, whose face was greasy from eating, said excitedly, "It's early today. Hurry up and give me the fish." When the kid saw that it was Uchiha Jin who knocked on the door, his eyes changed color instantly. Bang! The door that opened was closed instantly, and Senju Atama, who was hiding behind the door, had a huge shock in his pupils. This guy actually came back. Dong dong dong. As the knocking sound became more and more urgent, the kid leaning against the banging door went from shock to fear. In the end, there was only a loud bang, and a big hole was smashed in the heavy wooden door by a fist. Then a head came close and said with a sly smile, "Here's Johnny." Ah. Gah. Although he didn't understand what this sentence meant, it didn't stop Senju Atama from being scared. As expected, the kid fainted again. Uchiha Jin, who opened the door from the cave, looked at the little ghost lying on the ground and fainted, and raised his eyebrows. "I haven't done some Chinese horror yet, why is he lying down? It's too easy for this kid." When Senju Banjian woke up again, he saw Uchiha Jin eating the grilled fish he ordered. Knowing that he was in the wrong, he swallowed his saliva and didn't dare to speak. "You have a good life, and there is someone to deliver takeaway." After swallowing the last bite of fish, Uchiha Jin used fish bones to pick his teeth and asked leisurely. "Not really, I only ate for a few days." Senju Banjian shrank his head and said in a low voice, then he seemed to remember something and hurriedly explained. "It just so happened that the store provided delivery service. I was afraid of getting into trouble when I went out, so I ordered a month's worth of meals." "Then you are really smart." Uchiha Jin stood up, sighing in his mouth, while picking up the broom beside him. "Of course not, don't you see who I am?" "Ah, stop hitting me." Senju Banjian jumped up with a smug look on his face, but before he could finish his words, Uchiha Jin's whip rained down on his butt, making the kid scream. After dealing with this kid, Uchiha Jin, who was refreshed, asked him to clean up both rooms, and he went to the long-missed backyard. during this period of hospitalization, I didn't have the opportunity to brush NPCs, and I don't know if there will be a big one today. After waiting for a long time, there was no sign of refresh. Uchiha Jin, frowning, was about to check if there was any problem with the system. At this moment, he heard a subtle sound behind him, and at the same time, he saw the scene behind him. A short figure walked out of the familiar ripple light screen, appeared behind Uchiha Jin and looked at him vigilantly. Izuna, but when seeing the person coming, Uchiha Jin's first reaction was that his little cousin came to visit. Then he noticed the other person's clothes and the forehead protector on his forehead that did not belong to this era. He was sure that this was an NPC spawned by the system. Nezuka, that after beating the big one, the small one comes, right? The young Nezuka who was spawned was wearing a blue top and gray-white shorts, a classic outfit from the Genin period, but what can this kid spawn for himself? I don't know if he has learned the signature skill Chidori at this stage. If he doesn't have Chidori, he doesn't care about the other skills. After being silent for a while, Nezuka raised his head, without any emotion in his eyes, and crouched down and rushed towards Uchiha Jin. Hey, let me play with you for a while, just as a rehabilitation. Uchiha Jin sighed and was too lazy to open his Sharingan. He pulled out one hand and started to beat the young Nezuka. As expected, the young Sasuke was knocked down by him in a face-to-face encounter. That's it. Although he knew that the other party was an NPC, Uchiha Jin couldn't help but say it in a sarcastic tone. The young Sasuke, who was knocked to the ground, suddenly raised his head with difficulty. A trace of consciousness flashed in his empty eyes. He looked at Uchiha Jin with a complicated expression, and the whole person disappeared without a trace after being covered by the light screen that appeared again. The backyard refreshes the random skill, Indra Chakra, every day, and obtains Indra Chakra *1, Indra Chakra fragments, 1/****, collect enough pieces to synthesize Indra Chakra. What the hell? This thing dropped after beating the second pillar? The floating fragments in the system gave Uchiha Jin a little shock. Is this also a skill? He swallowed hard and looked at the fragment in disbelief. When he clicked it, there was no explanation except the display name, nor did it state how many fragments he had to collect to obtain it. Clenching his fists, Uchiha Jin felt motivated. It seemed that he could not stop the progress of the liver fragments in the future. As the body felt cool, the sweat he had just shed when sparring with the young Ertsuzi disappeared without a trace. In a good mood, he returned home and did not continue to bully the Thousand Hands. He returned to his bedroom and began to clean up the recent spoils. In the system space, the empty chessboard in the past is now full of spoils. After more than a week of hard duel, Uchiha Jin perfectly ate 2 rounds of heart steel. After opening, the most produced is gold bricks. The mountains of gold bricks have made Uchiha Jin no longer have a desire for money. He turned his head to look at the items that exploded. On the left-hand side is the thorn vest that was revealed a few days ago, and 2 more came out from behind. One is a blue necklace in the shape of a claw, and the other is a yellow card, Dragon's Claw, gain 9% of maximum health, and gain 5 health every 2 days. Metabolism Accelerator, gain 2 health points every day. Binding only. What exactly is the attribute of life value? Curious, Uchiha Jin tried to communicate with the system to get answers. The health value is the health bar. The higher the health value, the thicker the blood bar. The host's lifespan is affected by the health value. A system that had not been seen for a long time appeared and gave Uchiha Jin some popular science. Then how much does 1 point of health translate into lifespan? Uchiha Jin took the opportunity to ask a question. Hit points and lifespan are 1:1, that is, 1 point of health equals 1 day. A plant. Isn't it true that as long as you wear these 2 things, you will gain 4.5 days of life for every day you live? Uchiha Jin instantly felt that he was good again. He was just a founder of Konoha. If he put on equipment that increased life recovery, wouldn't he be able to survive when Boruto and his grandson were the protagonists? Only 1 piece of life recovery equipment and hex card can be worn at the same time. The system poured a bucket of cold water at the right time, killing Uchiha Jin's idea in the cradle. Smashing it, he shook his head after waking up from a sweet dream. Sure enough, it was reasonable to only wear one with such powerful attributes. Ah! Returning to reality, Uchiha Jin raised his hand and put a blue fang-shaped necklace on his neck. He suddenly felt a warm energy spread throughout his body. His whole body was numb and he couldn't exert himself. The comfortable experience made him endure it. He kept moaning. Hey, 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 please be careful with your volume when you are doing things, there are still minors in the house. Suddenly, Senju Atama's voice came from outside the house. Uchiha Jin trembled in fright, and dropped the newly condensed metabolism accelerator card to the ground. Give me your feet, isn't there rubbish on the ground? Senju Atama opened the door very naturally, and started to clean with a broom skillfully. He just happened to see the card that Uchiha Jin had dropped. He was curious and picked up the shiny card as soon as he saw it. This must be rubbish too. It's such a pity to lose such a good thing, I took it away. Without any explanation, he stuffed the card into his pocket, turned around and left. The set of movements was extremely fast, which could be described as flowing smoothly. Uchiha Jin, who had just passed the numbness, gathered his energy and shouted loudly. Give it back to me. You're a thief. Chapter 81 Time Flies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Card has been bound. The metabolic accelerator card was not retrieved in the end. Uchiha Jin, who searched the kid's body and found nothing except his crotch, heard the system's belated notification. Unexpectedly, the kid Senju Banjian accidentally activated this hex card and became its first and only owner. Do you feel anything different? Pressing the forehead of the kid who was blushing from the body search, Uchiha Jin asked curiously. Let me go. I'm going to bite you to death, hentai gorilla. Ignoring Uchiha Jin's question, Senju Banjian opened his mouth and wanted to bite Uchiha Jin's evil big hand. It seems that he has a lot of energy. Skillfully avoiding the kid's open mouth, Uchiha Jin touched his chin and said, it would be great if he could see the chakra in this kid's body. Uchiha Jin, who suddenly had this thought, suddenly felt a hint of coolness in his eyes, and his vision became very clear in an instant. Looking at the kid with his teeth and claws, he couldn't help but be startled. Now in his eyes, the meridians under Senju Banjian's body are clearly visible, and the chakra flowing in each meridian can be seen clearly. What's going on? Uchiha Jin raised his hands and found that his eyes seemed to have X-rays, and he could directly see through the skin and flesh to see the flow of chakra in his body and the acupuncture points at various locations. What's wrong with your eyes? Why did you become cataracts? Senju Banjian, who was extremely ashamed and angry, found that Uchiha Jin actually ignored him and began to be dazed. He was about to step forward to teach him a lesson, but he never thought that he would see the other's eyes and screamed in surprise, cataracts. Uchiha Jin heard what the little ghost said and hurried to the bathroom. In the mirror, his eyes were actually blue-white, but there were no blue veins around his temples that he remembered the Byakugan. What is this? The Byakugan does not look like the Byakugan, but it has the ability of the Byakugan. Unable to figure it out, Uchiha Jin walked out of the bathroom and saw the Thousand Hands kid not far away. He tried to observe his chakra with his current pair of white eyes, and then he was surprised to find that the kid's heart was filled with burning chakra energy, which was continuously supplied to all parts of the body. This should be the effect of the metabolic accelerator. Now as long as the kid does not overdraw his vitality, he should be able to live for a long time. Thinking of this, Uchiha Jin couldn't help but feel relieved. Originally, his life was bound to that of Thousand Hands Atama through the mission. If he couldn't complete the mission, even if the Thousand Hands kid died safely, he would still be considered a mission failure, and he would be wiped out by the system in the end. Now, the kid with the metabolic accelerator should be able to live for a long time, and the cycle of this mission can be extended indefinitely. Uchiha Jin had also checked the tasks assigned by the system. Since the last upgrade, the task system has entered a long dormant state. In the huge task bar, there is only one task, save Senju Atama, and the suffix of the task is marked with the word pre-task. After clicking it, the system prompts that if the pre-task is not completed, the next task cannot be carried out. Little ghost, I wish you good fortune as vast as the East Sea and longevity as great as the South Mountain, but if a life-saving outfit is exploded in the future, put it on this little ghost first. Uchiha Jin, who is clear-minded, walked over and touched the little head of Senju Atama who was still sulking, and said seriously, Senju Atama. In the following days, Uchiha Jin spent a rare and pleasant vacation. Every day, except for the two little cousins who came to visit, no one else visited, which made him happy and leisurely. Yes, Izuna, your hidden weapon skills are indeed better than mine. I am ashamed of myself. Yawning, Uchiha Jin perfunctorily bowed his hands, looking at Uchiha Izuna holding a shuriken beside him. He was stagnant for a while. Cousin, are you happy to tease me like this every day? Izuna, who was tricked by Uchiha Jin to fight every day, had long seen through his tricks. He was just teasing him. He couldn't beat him here, felt inferior there, and always said I am willing to call you the strongest, etc. At first he was complacent, but later he slowly realized that something was wrong. This guy was just making fun of him. Oh, how is it possible? My cousin is a natural talent. Isn't it normal that he narrowly beat me? Uchiha Jin didn't want his best sparring partner to run away like this, so he hurried to explain. Humph. I will never fight with you again next time. Quan Na pouted and refused Uchiha Jin's future challenge, and told him his father's instructions by the way. By the way, my father asked you to go to him today. Walking in Uchiha Taijima's mansion, Uchiha Jin wondered what his cousin wanted him to do. Could it be about the seal? Knock, knock, knock. Knock on the door of the clan leader's study. Come in. A familiar voice sounded, and Uchiha Jin pushed the door open. Uchiha Taijima was sitting on the desk, writing documents furiously. He looked up at his nephew, stopped writing, and said slowly. Jin, are you almost recovered? Already recovered. Uchiha Jin nodded. Then it's time to go to work. It turned out that he was urged to go to work. Although the work in the dungeon had been fooled by Uchiha Luchazwa to be done, there were new prisoners coming in and old prisoners dying in the dungeon every day, and the update of the files could not be delayed. Okay. I'll be back tomorrow. Uchiha Jin, knowing that he couldn't slack off any more, immediately obeyed the order. He couldn't trick his little cousin into giving him a hard time anyway, so going back to the dungeon to get some hard time was just what he wanted. Okay, go down. After staring at Uchiha Jin's eyes for a long time, Uchiha Taijima, who was hesitant to speak, lowered his head and waved his hand to signal him to go down, and he continued to work. His cousin seemed to want to say something to him, but he didn't say it in the end. It was obvious that Uchiha Taijima had something to say. Uchiha Jin scratched his curly hair and gave up thinking directly. Anyway, the bow and bridge are naturally straight, and he will say it when he wants to. Time flies, and the years pass by. In the next few years, Uchiha Jin worked in the dungeon step by step. During this period, he applied to Uchiha Yen to transfer Uchiha Lucha to be his secretary, and gave all the file work to him. He mingled in the number 1 and number 2 dungeons every day, diligently brush gang first when he went to work, and the first thing he did after get off work was to go to the backyard to wait for NPC. In a few years, he brushed hundreds of young 2-pillars, harvested hundreds of Indra fragments, several sea-level fire escapes, and the ninjutsu Chidori that he had been thinking about day and night. However, not every time he spawned a second pillar. Occasionally there would be a few ninjas who had appeared in the original work, such as the mentors of the 12 little strongmen, who had spawned many times, and he gained a lot of escape techniques and secret techniques. The biggest gain for him was a masked white-haired man, who actually dropped Shenwei fragment, but he didn't appear many times, and he always dropped the earth flow wall with a dog head. In the backyard, Uchiha Jin raised his hand, and lightning flashed in his hand with a sharp explosion. Looking at a plump and beautiful woman spawned in the distance, Uchiha Jin rushed over mercilessly, and the Chidori in his hand pierced directly into the woman's chest, but before it touched the plump softness, it was blocked by the other party's white lotus arm. Looking up at the woman's beautiful face and light yellow long hair, Uchiha Jin frowned. The script was wrong. Several times before, he directly took away the Chidori with one shot, and then exploded some medical ninjutsu such as, palm, immortal technique fragment, and chakra scalpel fragment. Why did it become so powerful today? The diamond-shaped mark on the woman's forehead flashed, and a black curse mark stretched out from the mark. Seeing that the curse mark spread faster, Uchiha Jin's eyes changed color, and his blue eyes scanned the woman who was reading the bar. Found it. Your Achilles heel.